Hi, everyone. Welcome back. So I want to go ahead and introduce you all to your syllabus. I am not going to sit here and go through everything in that syllabus and read it word for word because you are plenty capable, and a lot of the things on the syllabus are going to be on all your syllabi, right? So I'm not going to go over those. We'll probably skip over a lot of that, but I do want to go ahead and kind of touch base on some of the things specific to this classroom. So let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. All right. Okay, so I want to go ahead and talk through some of these things. Again, I am remote. I do not live in Kentucky, so I do live in a different time zone. So bear in mind when you get emails or receive emails or when you do set up a Zoom that I'm actually an hour behind you. And so we probably won't be doing them at 8 o'clock in the morning your time or because that's way early here. But so just kind of keep in mind that I'm an hour behind you guys. And if you need hours other than what are available for the Zoom within those Zoom hours, or if you need something, make sure to email me as soon as possible so we can get something set up. Again, it is not hard for me to have a meeting that is not within my office hours. Now, I will have virtual office hours. Sometimes I will do them in a way that anybody can pop in or out. But if I do have a meeting specifically with a student scheduled within those hours, I will make those not public. Obviously, those will be a one-on-one situation, and I will come back to the more public ones when that meeting is done. So just understand that those things are those meetings from those students who individually want to talk to me are going to take priority in some cases. All right. So this is a cross-listed class. So if you are a WGS student, understand that I know that you may not be a sociology major. The likelihood of that is not high. And that you may be a major from, and that goes for all of the students, but there's a likelihood that you will be a major for something else, which is why I've tried to give some options and even some reading options that are not all sociological and not all driven within peer-reviewed journals. So there's some poetry and there's some other things to make sure that we accommodate both our English majors that might be in here and or anyone else that is outside of the sociology, anthropology kind of house that we have sitting there. So I'm not going to read here about our course description. You all know that course description. That's what you signed up for. It was the same as the one that you signed up for. Our education goals are similar to everyone's educational goals. We want to make sure you're reading, writing, critically thinking, right? So I just kind of want to make sure that we draw attention. The most important one, especially for a class like this, is that fourth one, that recognizing perspectives from other cultures and historically marginalized groups, and not just historically marginalized groups within current society as well. Our learning outcomes, again, I'm not going to read these to you. You can read them on your own. They are fairly consistent with some of your other classes, but specific to gender and gender from a sociological lens. So our required text, I do have 3 texts. Understand that the way text is incredibly small and they're full of essentially little like blog posts or little short snippets made by sociologists within other content. So like within social media platforms, within little letters to the editor kind of things. So they are more geared for that short snippet of a read to grasp like or to even personalize a more broad conversation or a more broad topic that we are going to talk about. But they use sociological language and they have citations within them. So I think that they're a good way to kind of talk through some of these things in a much more condensed fashion. You have your main text, which is the Zen text, which is the gender through the prism of difference. We are not going to read that entire text, so don't stress out. But we are going to read things within that textbook, given the different chapters. Now, I am going to say that I'm still waiting for this edition to come in the mail because I have the 5th edition. So I do not have page numbers on this, and I may have to come back and change up the readings just a little bit if for some reason there are not readings in that book that we need to address or we need to see. The Travers book is written by she is a sociologist who studies gender, And that book is specific to kind of towards the end of the semester, we're going to talk about social change, or we're going to talk about movements within the United States. And I want to make sure we have a very real, very recent kind of sociological text that has come out that will give you guys some, I guess, understanding of how gender science impacts and can talk about real life and worldly change, but also kind of give you a tangible look about what social scientists, once they reach like the graduate level plus, do with their sociology, what their books look like, and how they can make those for a more public audience, how they can make them still scholarly, how they can make them both, right? So, and I think this is a good example of not just what a scholarly text could look like, but also specific to a gender scholar within sociology. A lot of this other stuff, again, make sure you're checking Blackboard, your integrity statements. All of these things are pretty common within your normal everyday syllabi. You've gotten a million of these, I'm sure, so I'm not going to read them to you. They have links on them. If you need to look at those things, please do. There is some stuff in here about late assignments. Listen, I am a very accommodating professor. I understand that life happens. I went to school with 2 kids. I went to school with 2 kids and a job. I understand that we all have a lot of things going on in our lives. We have caregiving roles. We have activities. Some of us play sports. Some of us are part of institutions within the university. Talk to me. Talk to me about the things that might get in the way, the things that might get in the way of deadlines. If you have something coming up that's going to correspond, if you have something blow up in your life, talk to me so that we can accommodate, we can figure out a way to make sure that you get those things. There are things that can't be made up. The very end of the semester, we're going to come up to crunch time, right? Because grades are going to be due not long after that. And we want to make sure that there's room to give adequate feedback and make sure that you guys have room to get everything in that you need. So I want to make sure that we're not bumping back too many of those bottom deadlines. Now, that being said, if again, a major thing blows up right then, or a major event happens in your life right then, there is the possibility that we can do, or that the university has in those circumstances where you can get your W or get your incomplete and work through those things. So make sure that you understand that there is always options. We just need to make sure we're doing the right thing through the institution, and that we're doing the right thing and the best thing for you, because sometimes just getting it done and making sure it's off your plate might be the better option. But we can talk through those options, okay? The final quiz, again, is one of those things that it's going to be in Blackboard. It's going to be there. It needs to be done and in the grade book. And extra credit is optional. Now, there are going to be multiple places where you can get extra credit, and multiple things throughout the semester that will pop up, whether it be events on campus or, and I'm not entirely sure, given the new COVID rise, how that will change and fluctuate during the semester. But if there are not in-person big events or something that happened this semester, I will come up with other things. We will have videos, we will have things that come out that matter. All right. Again, deadline extensions, things like that. Please, please, please contacting me is the most important part of that. And again, like, I want you to succeed. I don't want you to fail. I don't want to, like, I don't want to be that hard-nosed professor, but I cannot accommodate what I do not know exists. And that is something that is in bold multiple times and underlined throughout this. And it's something that I want you to understand and remember. I cannot accommodate what I do not know exists. If you do not contact me, if we don't have conversations, if I don't know what happens, then I just don't think you did the assignment for whatever reason. But whatever the reason is, I can't accommodate it because I don't know it. Okay. So please, please, please communicate. And so that's kind of in there. The late work policy, if you do not communicate, if we don't have those things, is there. So I'm going to get into a couple of these different assignments. I will do another video that will be put in the module labeled research project or projects. And that will have both your project options, and then I'll go over all the different steps of your, all the different assignments for your research project. The research project looks like it is a large portion of your grade, but it's not one assignment you're turning in at the end of the semester. That 400 points is going to come out of multiple assignments that are going to be throughout the semester. So don't panic and think that the paper itself is the only thing, or the project itself is the only thing that's taking up that 400 points. It's only about 150 points of the actual thing. So there's not as much stress and panic on that end of semester project, okay? I do want you to do a good job, and the reason there are so many steps is so that we can make sure that we're on the same page, and can get those projects done the way we want them to be. And also, that project is not just a paper. You have other options or alternatives, which I'll get into in another video. So please make sure you watch that, because that's important. And the documents are all in there too, explaining the different options. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to make sure you watch the videos, make sure you watch and read the documents that are associated with that folder, especially because they will give you resources, they will give you links to videos on how to do things, they will give you all the information on every single step of that project that you could possibly want, so that way, hopefully, it is very seamless. But I will get into some of these other things. So module work, the semester is going to be broken up into 8 2-week modules, and those will have readings in them. They'll have tasks you need to do. It'll have all your stuff. It's going to look a little overwhelming at first when you first see it, but you remember that this is 2 weeks. So this would be, say, 4 classes if you were a 2-a-week class, right? So it would be essentially 4 days worth of in-person meetings. So understand that, like, while it looks really intensive, you have 2 weeks to do it. Don't wait till the last minute. Make sure you're getting some of those things. There are audio versions, like you can set your phone up to the Blackboard link and it will read the things to you while you're driving, read the articles to you while you're driving. Or you can do things like that. You also, especially for my lectures, stick them in your ear. You don't have to watch me, like, it's gonna be okay. I will also put the Blackboard slides up there so you can print out the slides for your lectures. This should not be something that stresses you out. Please make sure that as long as you're touching in on those things, you're gonna be fine. Okay. Your key concept quizzes. I want to make sure that you have the sociological terms that we want at the end of the semester, but also that you understand how to apply them. Because if you can give me a definition, that doesn't always mean that you can apply it to your future research, to your other classrooms, to broader society, right? The goal of this class is application and critical thinking. It's not just to pop off a bunch of terms. So I want to make sure that those quizzes, again, are that thing that are easy points. They're just, hey, yes, I know these terms. These are how they're used. This is what this reading was about, right? They're very straightforward, and they will continue to be so through the rest of the semester, because I want those to be easy points that we all succeed in. You'll get 3 chances to do those quizzes. They're going to be the same questions, so make sure you're paying attention to what you've answered before, and if you got it wrong, don't answer that, right? But I want to make sure that you guys, again, these are about making sure you are understanding and being able to use some of those key terms that you will be using throughout the rest of your academics within the sociology department and more broadly. Okay. And again, you can use all your materials for those quizzes. They're open note, open book, open everything. Okay. The discussion boards. So I want to make sure that we kind of have a conversation about these. I want you to ask questions, because I think as an academic, that's something that's required of you, right? It's not just, yes, I've digested this reading, and this is what it is, and there is no more questions. Almost every research project, or almost every theory paper, or whatever it is that we're going to read, poses limitations, poses more questions, right? It gives us something to think about as we're asking our own questions. So I want you to use these discussion boards as a way to apply what you've learned again, right? Like, I want them to be, you are using this, and then you are going on and talking about them. You're using it and you're asking questions, or, hey, I just don't understand what they're talking about in this part. Like, in this part, they're using these terms, they're using these big words, they're using this example, and I don't understand how it applies. Okay, awesome. Ask the question. This is both you being able to help and learn together as a class, but also it helps me understand what you're not understanding, or how you guys are using these, or what context you're thinking about these articles in, right? So it gives me help to understand where, as I start to make the lectures for the later things, what you're interested in and what. Okay. See, I told you my kids would pop in. It's the first video and they already are. Please, please go. And I will be with you in just a minute. So again, don't be afraid to disagree when you are responding to your the questions from other people. But be mindful that language matters. And so when I say this, be respectful of the positionality that you carry and the positionality of others and how perspectives are going to clash. There will not be derogatory language will not be tolerated. It will be addressed very promptly. So make sure that we understand that if we are worried about that or worried about the terminology for something, ask the question, right? So that we can make sure that we're using the right terminology and make sure that we are not using outdated or possibly derogatory language towards others. I want this to, again, be a way for, and I will be in there and talking through some of these questions too when they don't get answered or what have you. Or I may be directing and explaining that gets brought up in another module, right? I want these to be a way for us to keep the conversation going and for us to interact as humans with our own expertise and our own perspectives, right? So there's that, the critical reflections. Okay, so these are a way for you guys to think through some of these, how these things impact not only you, but your future career, your future jobs, etc. So within every 2 modules, so for 4, so there will end up being 4 of these, you will take one of the readings within the 2 modules, right? So like the first one will be due at the end of the second module. And so you have all the readings for module 1 and all the readings for module 2 to choose from. Pick one of the readings, and I want you to do a 3-paragraph critical reflection. In the first paragraph, all you're doing is summarizing, making sure you're getting some in-text citations in there, right? Summarizing kind of what the main point of this was, what sociological concept they're using or talking about, and why it's important. Talk about the research, talk about the theory, talk about the topic that they are talking about, and do it in a way that lets me know that you were actually reading and digesting that, right? So be specific, or like I don't want you to quote it. I don't want you to use quotes from this. I want you to take what you know and essentially summarize it, and summarize it in a way, but only with 1 paragraph. In the second paragraph, I want you to and I want you to take it and talk about how it's relevant, these topics, these 4 concepts, talk about how it's relevant to something in social media, something in the news, something in one of your other classrooms, a lived experience that you have, right? Something that you can say, hey, okay, I am understanding this concept. This is what they're saying about this concept, and this is how it relates to the real world. This is how it relates to my world, right? This is how it relates to the sociological bubble that I live in. Okay. And this does not have to be personal. Please note that you do not have to share anything you do not want to share. But it also allows you the ability to talk about how you might apply it to your other classrooms, or etc. The last paragraph, I want you to demonstrate how you're going to use the information you gained in your life. So this can be within an interpersonal relationship. This can be broadly how you would like to take this and do something with social change. Or it can be something as easy as, hey, I'm going to be in this job, or this is the job I kind of want to be in, and this information is handy because I will use it in this way, right? Don't overthink this. You know what it is you want to do. You know how you interact with others. You know what your other classrooms are. You know all of these things, and it's this doesn't need to be a stressor point. But this is my way of understanding how you guys are applying these things, or how you guys are critically thinking and about these core concepts and relating them to your life. Because if you can't relate them to your life, then they're not going to stick, and I want them to stick. Grading is out of 1,000 points. It's very straightforward. All your incomplete, your harassment, all of these things are all in here. All your accommodations and accessibility statements, everything that you have in all of your situations. I will also be posting a resource guide to more broadly the resources in the area for any kind of trauma or any kind of things like that. I advise you as a human to print it out and have it with you, especially if you have you live on campus or you have campus classes, because there is a likelihood that even if you don't need it yourself, someone in your life that you are around might need one of those resources. And I want to make sure that you all have them. It's something that I did. I kept it in a binder in my backpack through the entire course of this, and I utilized it a lot, right? It's something that even if I was around somebody that was really struggling with something, I knew where they could go, who they could call, and that was helpful, right? To be a good friend, to be a good advocate. And I want to make sure that you guys have the opportunity and the ability to do that as well. So lastly, I'm not going to read through all the different things, but I want to show you kind of essentially what these modules are going to look like. And I want to touch base on one very, very important thing. This class is going to deal with topics and readings that include accounts of violence against women, sexual violence, rape, homophobia, transphobia, child abuse, mental health and suicidal ideations, structural violence, discrimination, derogatory language, and microaggressions. And that's just the name. I'm going to give, within each module, I will give you content notes for each reading. If there is something that you know will impact you, talk to me. We can talk about either an alternative reading in some cases, or we can talk about the possibility that that reading is specific, like that's specific to a certain part of the reading, and we can talk about where that is and how to avoid it so that you can still get the core concepts and the core things that we want to learn, but not do so in a way that is harmful or impactful to you. This is not going to get you out of every reading, but it will give you the ability to understand and work through some of the things that impact us in very different ways. Okay. Again, I want to reiterate right here, I cannot accommodate what I do not know. That does not mean you have to come in and tell me your trauma stories. That is not what I'm asking for. But hey, a heads up, like these things really bother me. If there's a reading that has a significant amount of these things in there, is there ability for me to change? Or hey, I noticed that the content notes for this module have this in there and this is on there. Is there another reading that has the same core concepts that don't talk about this? And we can talk through that. Please don't hesitate to talk through that with me. Or even just I can talk through what it is or what it isn't, right? If you're worried about specific kinds of things. Because some things, yes, they may talk about that, but they're probably going to do it in a numbers base, not necessarily personal accounts where they're sharing interpersonal stories, and that might be the difference, right? But for each module, it will be set up like this. We'll have your it will have the dates you need to complete. It will have whatever EKUs, big dates are in there, like last day to drop, withdrawal dates, those kind of things. Then you're going to have your readings. Pay attention to the ones that say optional, because I don't want you to read more than you have to. But these are also usually the ones that allow for that quick, like decisive kind of link to these ideas. Okay. And then lastly, it'll be the steps you need to complete. There will be some that are more heavy reading. There will be some that are more heavy on the things that you have to do. Notice that in almost every section or every module, there's some kind of either poetry or short story or some kind of thing that is not necessarily a peer review journal article, because I do want you to also understand that these concepts impact individuals and communities, and that these are not just things that are quick and easy and we can just put numbers to them, right? I want you to understand the real individualized role that gender plays in our lives. Okay. So as we go through here, you're going to have all the things, and when they're due, again, if you have questions about that, please let me know. Or if you have something that you know is going to come up, please let me know. I want to draw close attention to the very end and to the last module. There are going to be, the last module looks like it has a lot, but there's going to be an option. You are going to have a little bit to read. But again, there's lots of options in this. And there's also a documentary I want you to watch, but I'm going to give you essentially probably 4 to choose from. The last one, the last options on the list are about trans visibility, and there's 2 different options, one of which I'm still working on whether or not I'm going to be able to have access to, because if I do get a link for that, it will be before it even comes out or has a link on the EKU website, so look out for that. That may or may not still be an option. I'm still working on trying to talk through with a friend of mine who is one of the humans that took part in that and helped make it. So there is that. Please don't feel obligated to watch that one just because I know some of the humans that took part in it. There's also going to be a document in that section that will give you links and resources to different groups and activities that you can do if you would like to get involved in any kind of social change. Okay. Remember that all your deadlines and all your due dates are written on here. This is not the final copy, obviously, that will be uploaded because I want to make sure I get all the other page numbers in there that aren't in here because I'm still waiting on that book. So I'll reiterate, I'll post that as soon as possible. And if anything changes, I will probably just redo the video and you won't see this. But if you have any questions or concerns, please let me know. And I hope we have an amazing semester. All right, everybody, take care.